This video aims to unlock the full potential of Chopin's A minor waltz by focusing on 5 key elements: producing singing tone, designing the accompaniment, balancing the hands, timing a waltz, and use of pedal. Before we dive into the details, the sheet music with my fingerings is free in the description. Let's begin with analyzing the melody in the first 4 bars. Here, we identify 4 distinct motifs by their slurs. To produce a singing tone, we must listen well and improve power resistance management. This can only be achieved by developing a co-working relationship between the fingers and wrist, guided by a careful ear. Let's play the first motif by drawing a half-ish circle from left to right with a flexible wrist and employ our forearm to guide the motion. I develop the melody towards the first beat and then soften it. At the end of the wrist movement, with my hand still in the upper position, I delicately press the key with the first finger. Ending the first motif with the thumb results in my hand being appropriately positioned for the second motif. Which I play with the same wrist motion. I will play this short, long rhythm, which we often encounter, by emphasizing the first beat. It's not only about creating a waltz feel, but also about making the music engage the audience on an emotional level. By shaping this motif similarly in each appearance, we can create a sense of familiarity for the listener. The next motif, which consists of 8th notes exclusively, asks for a different approach. Rather than accentuating the first beat, I will begin softly and develop the melody towards the next bar. I will reintroduce the half-circular wrist motion, but this time I'll start with a light touch and shape the motif by following its direction. As you can imagine, similar motifs can be played with the same attitude. I'll emphasize the next first beat by bouncing the wrists, and after that, end the motif gently. Now it's a good moment to turn our attention to the ornaments. I like to play the grace notes by starting them on the beat. While Chopin indicated in some of his pieces that he wanted the grace notes to begin on the beat, generalizing this as a universal rule to all of his compositions would be unwise. I will explain both approaches, and I encourage you to experiment with both, and select the one that resonates with you. If you choose to begin the grace notes before the beat and align the main note with the bass, there are a few key points to remember. The first would be to prioritize emphasizing the primary note, and consider the grace notes as a step towards it. I suggest using the fingerings 2, 3, 1. Assuming the first finger tends to produce more force than the others, playing the primary note with the thumb will aid in emphasizing it. Also, to avoid disrupting the overall timing, simultaneously start the ornamentation a little earlier and shorten the previous note. In this option, we bounce the wrist on the main note. After bouncing it, keep your wrist on the top position, which will help you soften the motif with weightless touch. To achieve a more melodic shape. The other option is to accentuate the first grace note and play it on the beat, resulting in a softer and shorter main note. A slight decrescendo leading to the main note must be added to execute this effectively. For this approach, I suggest using the fingerings 1, 4, 3 for similar reasons as before. Using the thumb with the first grace note can assist in naturally emphasizing it. Also, I shape the melody by softening it right after the emphasized note, like in the previous option. It's important to note that singing is a crucial component of Chopin's music. Italian opera greatly inspired him, and his compositions reflect this influence. So, regardless of your preference between the two options, I suggest avoiding a sharp and articulate approach. Instead, express them calmly, as if you were singing a melody. For the remainder of the piece, I will play the grace notes starting on the beat. But even if you choose to play the other way, you can keep utilizing the recommendations that I will provide. The following 2 bars replicate the opening of the waltz, thus I play them similarly. Although the next motif may appear familiar, the melody leads somewhere else, the end of the first phrase. Here I will incorporate the half-circular wrist motion, similar to what I demonstrated in the 3rd bar. This time I will begin the motif more gently and conclude it with an even lighter touch to offer a graceful ending. Chopin did not include any dynamic markings in this piece. The reason for that isn't apparent, but since he didn't publish it, perhaps he never finished it. We may never know for sure, but it presents us with an exciting opportunity to develop our own dynamic plan. So, how about this? Let's begin with a gentle touch to reflect the charm of the piece and make a pleasant first impression on the listener. In the second bar, we can slightly intensify the melody with more volume. The following motif begins softly, but it ultimately reaches the brightest and most active point of the whole phrase. The next two bars replicate the opening. But what if we, instead of beginning with the same dynamics and adding volume, bring the melody to a softer place this time? As the final motif marks the conclusion of the first phrase, I will shape it elegantly by utilizing a slight crescendo and decrescendo, all the while maintaining a gentle touch. Before introducing the left hand, let's blend the mechanics and dynamics of the right hand in the first phrase. Here is the plan. The phrase consists of 8 bars, and I like to view it as 2 4-bar sections. The first section presents an offer, and the second one accepts it. The left hand's simplicity remains constant throughout the piece, but how we play it importantly shapes the soundscape. The fundamental challenge lies in maintaining consistency. To achieve this, we can start by emphasizing the first beats to solidify the waltz rhythm. Starting from a deep bounce on the bass note, we have to swiftly jump to the chords. We should focus on delicately caressing these chords, recognizing their role of conveying harmony rather than dictating the tempo. The bass and the chorus are like two complementary parts of a whole. Therefore, establishing an organic relationship between them is essential to create an elegant and inviting character. Once you feel at ease creating this texture, you can take it further by voicing the chords. This involves emphasizing the top notes while softening the bottom ones. Now it's time to combine both hands and play the first phrase. From the start, focus on balancing the melody and accompaniment. Keep the left hand softer and let the right hand take the spotlight. The second phrase starts off identically, but then introduces a new melody in the second half. Unlike the decisive conclusion of the first phrase, this one leaves the door open and creates a sense of anticipation for the new melodic and harmonic material to follow. If you prefer, you can play the melody non-legato, but be sure to do so melodically by staying in the key for an appropriate amount of time. I like to articulate it like the first phrase though. You can phrase a new motif at bar 15 melodically by implementing a circular wrist motion with the 8th notes. As for dynamics, I will start the phrase a bit softer. Despite some melodic development in the second half, I will maintain the dynamics on the shyer side to create a clear contrast with the following phrase. The left hand should be approached in the same manner as before. The melody in the next section has a different nature. It carries a sense of complaint or dissatisfaction alongside its charm. It even becomes spectacular as we move forward, yet stays elegant. Let's start building the phrase with the right hand. First, I want to boost the overall dynamic and adjust it according to the melody's direction. To do so, after already beginning with more sound, I'll keep growing the melody with a crescendo. From there, I'll gradually decrease the volume with a decrescendo for the next 3 bars. However, I'll emphasize the first beats of each bar where the grace notes are placed, yet with decreasing intensity each time. Bouncing with your wrist will be an effective technique to help you organically emphasize the first beats. If you start the grace notes before the beat, bounce the wrist on the main note. If you start on the beat, bounce the wrist on the first grace note, just like in the first phrase. Finally, remember to adjust the resistance of your wrist to achieve the desired dynamics. Many students find the following passage challenging due to its quickness. Fortunately, I have a helpful tip that will make the process smoother. The key is to create momentum with your wrist to keep the flow going. Let's start the motion in the upper left, and after drawing a half ellipse with the wrist, end it in the upper right position. For this to work, you must release the tension in your hand and allow your forearm and fingers do the work with a fluid motion. It's also essential to avoid accentuating every E played with the thumb, a common habit. Instead, consider this note as a piece of this melodic line. By focusing on staying light on your thumb, you can comfortably maintain the E in harmony with the other notes of the passage. To conclude this phrase, let's bounce the wrist on the first beats for emphasis. Then aim for a soft touch as we reach its fragile destination. I have a fun suggestion for this section. Since there is a repeat sign, we can play the phrase differently each time. Actually, making some changes in the second half of the phrase can be enough to do that. The first time, let's begin bar 21 with a crescendo, and then resolve rather calmly. The second time, we can start with a decrescendo that goes against the direction of the melody. As we reach the end of the phrase, we can slow down suddenly and aim to play the final notes as softly as possible. These expression variations could add depth to the performance. There is nothing new to note regarding the left hand in this section. As before, make sure to emphasize the bass notes, aim to play the chords gently, but still pronounce the top notes slightly more than the rest. Alright, let's play the section with both hands. The next section begins identically with the first phrase. However, at bar 31, the story takes a different turn, leading to a cheerful atmosphere and a completely different destination. To highlight this shift in mood, I suggest starting the section with a more decisive sound, giving the main melody an outspoken quality. After such an entrance, it's fitting to develop the melody grandiosely, building on the energy of the previous bars. In the next section, I suggest a sudden decrease in dynamics to create a sense of surprise. This way, we can counter the enthusiasm of the previous phrase with the new one's charm. The grace notes and the mordants are written differently, so they should sound differently. Here is a simple but effective option. If you typically start playing the grace notes before the beat, try beginning the mordants on the beat instead. On the contrary, if you start the grace notes on the beat, try beginning the mordants before the beats. Consider playing the mordants with a sharper articulation, regardless of how you time them, which is precisely what we avoid when playing the grace notes. Because the ultimate goal is to create different flavors for the listener. This section is also repeated, so let's offer something else when playing the second time. We can make two subtle changes that make a huge difference. Here is a recipe. When playing the section for the second time, let's end the first phrase at bar 32 softly. Again, let's keep the graceful spirit in the following phrase, but this time, let's end it exceptionally slowly in the last two bars. Remember that the left hand's role is to support the melody, so try playing softer to avoid overpowering it. In the last section, we go back to melancholy with the reappearance of the first phrase, and gently fade away with the final phrase. Here I like to have a freer approach to word timing. I recommend you experiment with that too. I will start and end both phrases, especially the last one, with a generous amount of stretching the tempo. The main difference of this section will be its rubato, offering a farewell atmosphere. Still, I like to maintain the lightness in the sound to avoid making it a heavy goodbye. I rather say, see you another time. Let's dive into pedaling, a crucial aspect of piano playing that can significantly impact the overall sound of a piece. I'll present a few options and let you decide which one resonates with you the most. Firstly, we have the no pedal option, which is useful for practicing and improving precision by focusing solely on controlling the sound's length with our fingers. Next, we have the option of playing each bar in one pedal. However, to avoid creating a muddy sound resembling that of a bathroom, I suggest pressing the pedal halfway to decrease the resonance and create a more balanced tone. The third option is the short version, where you press the pedal from the first to the second beat. While this creates a drier sound, it can add an elegant character to the piece when executed precisely. Finally, let's talk about the more complex option, which can be highly rewarding. Given the repetitive texture of the left hand, we can focus on the melody's variable characters and shapes and use the pedal accordingly. So here's what I do. I start with shorter pedaling in the first two bars, so the melody gives a less cloudy first impression. Then in the third measure, which consists of only 8 notes, I keep the pedal for the whole bar. After that, I return to the short pedal. I predominantly rely on the shorter pedal technique throughout the piece, and incorporate the longer pedal selectively. You might like playing drier, the cheerful section starting from measure 33, meaning with little or no pedal. Also, I go with the shorter pedal option in the last phrase to create a subtle fading effect and to avoid a heavy adieu, as discussed in the previous chapter. Although Chopin intended his waltzes for listening, they were influenced by the art of dance. To capture the nature of the waltz rhythm, consider exploring the sensation within your body with a bit of dancing or bouncing. Not too fast, not too slow. Now I will assemble everything discussed in this video and let you hear how it sounds. Here it comes. Let me know in the comments which waltz by Chopin you'd like me to cover next. And please like the video if you enjoyed this lesson, as it helps the channel grow. Thanks for watching. Till the next one.